what is new, there's a popular voting, as you have, I think all of you have voted also on this online, and the popular vote so went to Felix. So who is Felix? Felix is a young firm from the Netherlands, and it was founded by Michiel Van Driessche, Deborah, Lambert, and Marnix, Vink. They all here together with the firm, about 10 people, and Felix seems to be a very interesting firm. They will present what they're doing. So they call themselves Office for Proactive Landscape Architecture. I'm quite curious to know what this is. And as a motto, they write, "We believe landscape architecture can be instrumental in dealing with the environmental and societal challenge we are facing." So, may I please ask all the members of Felix on stage? So these are the three founders, Michiel Van Driessche, Marnix, and Marnix Vink, and Deborah Lambert. So, and these are the other members. Show it to everyone. This is specially designed and a very nice document. This is for Felix.
Okay, this works. Well, thanks first of all for the award. We are delighted to be here. We're very happy, of course, with the award, and that we can share some glimpse of our work. I will try to tell a positive story on the inauguration day of Donald Trump at the other side of the ocean. This is the Felix team, and Alice, have you seen? I'm very happy that we made it, that everybody is here today, and that we can kind of share this moment with everybody who is working for us. This is the place where we normally work. It's in Rotterdam. It's a former warehouse in the middle of the harbor area. And the office was founded 3 years ago by Deborah, Lambert, and Marnix, and myself as a platform to identify new spatial challenges. Because we believe that landscape architecture can be or should be instrumental in dealing with the environmental and the societal challenges that we are facing, as you've already mentioned. Because a better world requires a better organization of the environment that we are living in. But we are somehow think that we are operating as landscape architects in a different era as our kind of fellow practitioners did before. After decades and centuries of conquering nature, turning water into land, and fighting against natural forces, we somehow realized and found out that it might be more effective and efficient to create new alliances with these natural processes. In the past, we might have thought that we can organize the life of people and determine also the organization of the society, while at the moment we are operating in a crazy, diverse and complex society that not can be captured by social or political models, let alone by the aspirations of architects and planners. So this asks for a different attitude, not the power play of people that want to change it all, not the ego of a salesman that is promising a new and a perfect world. No, we are in a great need of new modest heroes, people that are investing in understanding the challenges of the existing world rather than developing personal prophecies. And that's actually the position that we try to take and think that it's a relevant position to take. We believe in landscape architecture as a pragmatic utopian practice. We see landscapes as spatial frameworks that are integrating different systems, such as water, infrastructure, energy. And we try to optimize all these systems separately. And therefore we also work together with different partner institutes and universities to actually substantiate these topics. And we see it as our role as landscape architects to engineer smart landscapes by connecting all these separate solutions and separate innovations into integrated spatial strategies. And moreover, we design these integrated frameworks or these integrated strategies into the paradisiacal environments that we actually ourselves would like to live in. So we heavily believe in this kind of promising overlap between pragmatism and idealism to change the world into a better place. And we apply this methodology both on large-scale transformation projects as on the small-scale design of public spaces. Our office is named after our own modest hero. It's called Felix. And making him the representative of our work neutralizes every sense of ego in the projects that we are doing. He's a man without a mission. We don't have a predefined agenda. We don't develop our own projects to realize our own personal ideals. No, we are travelers. We are hunting around the world to find the most pressing challenges to work on. So as such, the office has a global scope, working in a wild mix of contexts and environments on a very various kind of palette of tasks. And we do not limit ourselves to work on a specific type of work or a specific type of project, but we try to be relevant in a wide range of projects. And we do not want to make paper plans, we want to realize these innovations. So therefore we work for various clients, with various clients, because we want to work for the people that can create the most leverage with the project that we are doing. So therefore in some countries we work for governments, while in other countries it turned out to be more effective to work for private developers. So I would like to show some glimpse of our journey so far. I will do that focusing on 3 key themes. I think everybody agrees that there are key themes at the moment. And I will illustrate them with some of the projects that we've been working on so far. And I will start with a project in Albania, in Berat. And it's a project that focuses on the Osumi River. And Berat is located, it's a historical city, it's a UNESCO World Heritage City. It's located along the river. And the task was to come up with a strategy to make Berat flood resilient. And so we started with looking a little bit at the history of Berat, and then it turned out that the last flooding was in 1953. Not to say that it was not kind of problematic situation back then, but at least it was not the most urgent problem for Berat. What is the most urgent problem is that they have a really big riverbed, which is for a big part of the year covered with low quality vegetation, because the Osumi River is only a small stream during a big part of the year. But when the water level is high in winter and in spring, they need the whole riverbed and it's completely covered with water. So this large variability kind of changes the morphology of the riverbed constantly and every year, as you can see on these 2 pictures. And well, you could see that as a characteristic of the area, but it also limits and even prevents actually any use of the river by the city. So therefore we developed a strategy to guide the river in such a way that it adds quality to the city in every season, both when the water level is high and when the water level is low. So we've put elements, structures in the riverbed that are strengthening the natural process of segmentation, where we want to keep the water, and sedimentation, where we want to create islands. So when the water level is low during summer, there is a narrow river and big islands that are part of the public realm of the city. The lower part of the island floods when the water levels rise, turning them into wetlands, and still the higher part of the islands remains. And when during kind of peak discharge levels, only very small islands are left apart and the whole riverbed is covered. We have done this in close collaboration with the UNESCO Water Institute in Delft, so turning scientific input into spatial strategies. And in the same way, we've also worked, we were commissioned by WWF, and we have done this project together with Wageningen University and the Louis Bolk Institute on a biodiverse dairy farming strategy in Friesland. Because, well, Holland is one of the biggest milk exporters in the world, despite their small size. So a big share of the land in Holland is used for dairy farming. And while the natural resources, they're actually not sufficient to get to these high production levels. So we need to add a lot of things, a lot of external resources and artificial measures are taking, antibiotics, fertilizers, to actually boost these ecological conditions, control these ecological conditions to get there. That's why we call it a kind of control model. And by doing that, we're actually kind of tearing down the ecological value and the biodiversity in the areas even more. And we need more and more and more of these artificial products to be added. And to actually stop this destructive process, we have worked together with the universities, which I mentioned, on an alternative model, the resilience model, where we use the available natural resources, the biodiversity, instead of artificial added input. Because this control model, it targets a high production, but it also requires a high input, so the financial margin is very low or very small. While the resilient model tries to optimize the balance, the relation between the available resources and the output. So you don't need to add a lot, but you still get a lot. And that's quite a difficult message to sell, because by producing less, a farmer can earn more and help to work on a better and ecological environment. So you need to have less to get more. But it is like that is. And so we worked on that model, and we kind of turned it into spatial building blocks by applying this strategy on the region of Friesland, which is one of the main dairy farming regions in the Netherlands. So we turned this kind of biodiversity into spatial measures, focusing on one hand, the first thing on the food production for the cows, so herb-rich grassland, how they have to deal with the mixture of cattle to create a kind of a sustainable group of animals, that it's not only one species which is there, and how to deal with the manure in the end, how they have to organize the drainage of their fields, and also how they can deal with the edges of these canals and these ditches in their meadows. And in the end also even how they have to organize the mowing regime and how they have to align ecological zones in the different areas. So we brought this all together in a transformation model for the landscape in Friesland. As you can see how it kind of gradually can grow and can be transformed. So I think these are two examples of how you can work on the transformation of a landscape, not by sheer designing it, but by understanding the system behind it, and by adapting that system that you get a new and a more resilient landscape model in the end. Urbanization is also one of the key tasks that we are working on, and it's a very diverse task. I would like to share 4 states of urbanization with you today, and kind of showing the relevance of landscape architecture in all 4 of them. We have new town development in Russia, transformation in Iceland, slum upgrading in India, and city extension in Myanmar. I will start with Russia. Because a lot of new towns are developed in Russia currently in the proximity of existing cities. And these new towns, they cannot really profit from existing cultural identity carriers. And moreover, they often fail to realize new ones. They just appear as a box or as a group collection of buildings. And one of the reasons why that happens is because they realize all the facilities that they have to build. Because in Russia, for every square meter of apartment, you need to build also a certain amount of sport and playground facilities. But they're almost always realized in fenced-off, privatized courtyards. So we are not building public quality, public services, but we're only investing in private services. So we worked on a new town over a new kind of district development close to St. Petersburg, 80 hectares big, supposed to house up to 9,000 new residents, where we actually put all the functions which are normally located in the courtyard in a central strip, creating a new urban core, a new urban identity, as you could say. And by doing that, we could also green this core, connecting it to the surrounding landscape, so that we could even bring a sense of nature back in these new towns. And this might sound pretty easy and as a kind of usual business, but actually it's not, because as we know it, the way we know it is that public parks are realized on public grounds, but in these areas, everything is privatized, cut in different plots, and every plot needs to facilitate a certain amount of square meters of program. So we worked on a plan where we kind of realized that, so that every plot had the right amount of square meters of program while trying to integrate it into a coherent park. So building a public park on private ground. It was kind of a job, but in the end we managed to turn this into a central green core with a strong identity that appears very diverse through the entire year, and that it can be used by actually all the people who are living around it. It's currently under construction, the first phase, and what was a game changer for us, or our involvement at least, is that the client was pretty hesitant for our involvement in the beginning, but then during the process they have won several awards for the public space of this design. So at a certain moment they also realized that there is a certain kind of marketing potential in investing in the public realm, and now they're even branding or selling the project with our visuals instead of the architecture renders. So somehow they realize that it's worth to invest in a public space as an identity carrier and not only in built square meters. This project is in India, in Mumbai. It's Dharavi. Dharavi is the largest slum of India, one of the largest in the world. Because of its central location, close to the center, along the river, there is a big interest in redeveloping it. There are a lot of plans are made, tearing down everything which exists at the moment, building up a new high-end, high-density new district, as you can see. Of course, that would be a humanitarian disaster. The United Nations position on slums is that we should not see or approach them anymore as islands of poverty, but as neighborhoods which are detached from the surrounding city, as you can quite well see on this picture. So we should not tear them down as a whole anymore, but we should invest in reconnecting these areas to the surrounding city. So we made an alternative plan, applying these principles, creating a framework of streets and public spaces that connects Dharavi back to the important spaces in the surroundings. And it's also located on the lowlands along the river, regularly suffering from flooding and bad water conditions. And we're from Holland, used to work with water, so we integrated the strategies that are required to turn Dharavi into a resilient and a healthy environment. All these measures are integrated in a set of new street sections for Dharavi. Well, as you can see, car, pedestrian, and bike infrastructure, and also public transport infrastructure is realized. Integrated water systems are put in place. The infiltration capacity of the area is maximized by realizing water permeable surfaces and green spaces, and a clear edge between the public and the to-be privatized land offers people the chance to get a formal address along these streets, and in the end also, well, obtain the ownership of the land that they're living on. Of course, the streets, they are not only connecting Dharavi to the surroundings, they're also structuring the district itself. Main streets connecting to the surroundings, a new urban backbone for program and facilities, a connected network of small streets replacing the narrow and dangerous alleys which are there at the moment, and a set of squares for every neighborhood as cultural but also sanitation hotspots. Well, in these visuals you can a little bit see that the investment which is done by the government in the public space can gradually also result in the redevelopment of the private areas and the settlements along it. In Reykjavik in Iceland, we work on the redevelopment of a former harbor area. This project is is a pilot project of the Reykjavik new municipal master plan, where they aim to densify the existing city rather than expanding it with new parts of city. And they want to combine this densification strategy with a kind of improvement of the quality of the city, because when you think about Iceland, this is probably the image that you more or less have in mind, and most probably not this one of the inner city center of Reykjavik. So to make sure that you also think about this, they want to invest in 4 themes. In Reykjavik as a city by the sea, as a green city, as a city for the people, and as a creative city. And well, the area we are working on is marked in the pink box. It's a former harbor area, as said. There are different warehouses. It's along a nature reserve. But most of the land is owned by the banks because the warehouses and the people who had their business there, most of them went bankrupt during the last years. So we had two clients for this project. The municipality with a very extensive wish list, and the bank, the landowner, with a kind of ambitious calculating machine. So we tried to make a plan that pleased both, making a framework of public spaces that was kind of securing the overall ambitions of the municipality, leaving space or creating space, and opportunities for redevelopment and regeneration. So the public space framework reorients the area to the sea, creating main public spaces along the water. It creates a green city by making networks in the ambient green areas, the nature reserves, and greening the infrastructure in the urban fabric itself, as you can see in this picture. And it realizes a city for the people rather than a city for cars, with creating space for pedestrians, for bikes, but also for outdoor use of the public space by the functions in the plinth. Well, altogether, this framework, as said, also leaves the opportunity for the redevelopment and showing an interesting benchmark of what redevelopment in Iceland could look like, because within this framework there's various possibilities for the developer to kind of create new residential and mixed-use blocks. Well, this was a challenge. It was a process of kind of changing things, adjusting things, with models, with all the people on the table, which are both the developers and the people from the municipality. But we are very happy that in the end we got to a supported plan by both, and that we are currently working on the further elaboration, or at least starting up the process of the further elaboration of the public space framework, and that the first plots, the redevelopment plots, that the tender briefs for that are prepared currently. The last urbanization project, which I'm going to show, is the city extension plan for Yangon. It's in Myanmar, where we've worked together with UN Habitat on the extension of Yangon, which is the former capital. It's over there. And Myanmar, for those who wouldn't know, it's located between China and India, along the Indian Ocean. And we started the project right after the elections in 2015, when the National League of Democracy of Aung San Suu Kyi had won a supermajority of seats. So after decades of military regime, Myanmar was opening up, creating space for economic and social liberalization and moving to a more market-oriented economy. So that also means a shift from a rural to an urban society. A lot of people are moving to the cities, and unfortunately there are no facilities, or barely no facilities to house them. So a lot of people are living in slums or in formal areas close to the industries that they are operating. So to avoid that, or at least to kind of try to come up with an answer for that, we worked on the city extension plan for Tantabin, which is a 100 square kilometer area in the northwest of Yangon, intended to house up to 1 million people. It's one of the 7 extension sites of Yangon to realize the growth of the city by 2040, up to 11 million people, to give you an idea of the size of the urban environment. And water is already quite a big challenge in the current fabric of Yangon because of its position along the river. And the new extension site of Tantabin is projected on a wet riceland area along 2 rivers that regularly flood. And as you can see, almost no protection to this flooding can happen. So therefore, the master plan that we have been developing for this new site is based on the creation of a resilient water system. So the 2 urbanized areas are located around and along a vast green core, which is a large landscape park that is collecting, cleaning, infiltrating, and in the end redistributing the water to the urban areas around it. So these 2 areas, they are located along the rivers, and then this green core is concentrated in the middle, and these urbanized areas are very strictly or very strongly connected to them. And all the other principles, infrastructure, density, and the distribution of program, they're actually based on this basic setup of creating 2 urbanized areas with a green core in the middle. Well, we've done this project as part of a capacity building project as well with municipal organizations, and we've been presenting this plan as a pilot plan to the new Minister of Construction in last July. It was a very positive reception, and we're happy that we're currently working also on the preparation of a first pilot area of this project. And well, I started with 2 transformation or landscape transformation projects. Moving on with 4 urbanizations projects that we're currently working on, I would like to end with a very concrete one, and maybe a little bit a controversial one. It's the Asylum Seeker Center in Ter Apel in the Netherlands. And I want to do that because I think it illustrates very well our attitude. We want to make use of our profession in any possible condition to add value, even if we might disagree with these conditions itself. Ter Apel is what you could call the capital of COA, which is the central agency of asylum seekers reception in the Netherlands. So when you arrive in the Netherlands as a refugee, you first go to an emergency accommodation. You are registered in Ter Apel, so everybody goes there. And then you go to one of the reception centers throughout the country. Ter Apel is also the biggest reception center. It's able to house up to 2,000 people. And we work on the plan for a new reception center, replacing the existing one and enlarging it with a new extension area. This is where Ter Apel is located. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, 2 hours driving from Amsterdam, which is the capital. And these are the signs which are there. So the center is completely detached from the neighborhood or the village where it's located. Actually detached from society, you could say. This is how people arrive, coming from the station, as most people do. You leave, well, the village, and you go to nowhere. So we worked on this plan with the belief, or at least the intention, that we could design this as a village for temporary residents, rather than a camp for refugees. And public space plays an important role in that, to create a sense of place, to create a place where people can somehow feel comfortable by being able to orient themselves in the area, to distinguish their house from another, to have places where they can gather and do activities with other people, but also, and maybe even more important, have places where nothing is happening, when they can kind of go and have time or space for reflection. We have been working on this project in the kind of in the period that there was a strong public opinion arguing that we shouldn't make things too beautiful, that it shouldn't be holiday parks like this one. And related to that, the government, which is saying that everything that we do has to be modest and efficient. But at the same time, this is the benchmark for these kind of areas. So everything that we would do would already mean a kind of enormous improvement of the conditions that they have at the moment. We started working on this project 1.5 years ago, more or less, kind of at when the crisis kind of started to get to its kind of higher levels. Construction started last year, in the middle of the crisis. The first phase is currently in use, and I'm happy that I can show some first pictures of that. Well, as you will understand, there are not so many people in it, and it's not like the happy atmosphere because of privacy reasons. They focus more on how the areas look like, but I think they give quite a well impression of how the area works and what we have kind of tried to achieve in the area. So this is when you enter a big lane, one of the neighborhoods along it, small-scale networks between the different neighborhoods, and two even, and kind of more quiet areas in between. Schools and sport facilities for the children and the people in the area. And then the courtyards where the different neighborhoods are organized around. With facilities, bikes, well, it's in Holland, so that at least you kind of can create a certain kind of feeling that it's a village that people are there. We are very well aware that this is not an ultimate solution at all for the crisis that we are facing, but at least it offers a fair answer to a crisis or a situation that has different pictures at other places in the world. And that's where I also would like to end. I hope I have been able to kind of share our optimism and our dedication to work on a better world. We will continue our journey, and I hope you're all with us. Thanks.